celebrated the birth star Revati of Puja Guruji with Abhishekam on his Padaka. Following that occasion, a few words were in order, and I would like to say a few words today following that occasion. Guruji used to always appreciate our ancient wisdom in knowing, in discovering that the life and activities on earth are influenced by the various elements in the universe. The universe is a big system and each element interacts with one another, and naturally earth being one of the elements gets its own interaction with the environment around it. Our elders found this reaction of other elements on our life both qualitatively and quantitatively also. Taking them into account, they had listed out the various activities that are required to be done by us at various auspicious points in time to achieve our ultimate goal. Then you may ask, what is our ultimate goal? Our Sanatana Dharma has defined our ultimate goal is to evolve ourselves and reach the Godhood one day. So all our activities, either they be mundane or religious or spiritual, are supposed to be oriented towards that particular goal of evolution. So our calendar is full of such suggestions all through the year. You know, time is continuous, which has no beginning and no end. But we have divided it into Mahayugas, Yugas, and years, and so on. Will take a small example as the time unit of 1 year. 1 year is divided into 2 time zones, each 6 months duration, based on the movement of sun, or rather apparent movement of sun on the horizon. The 2 zones are called Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. Ayana in Sanskrit means travel. The northern course of sun is known as Uttarayan and southern course of sun is known as Dakshinayan. But it is an anomaly. Sun is not supposed to move at all. Where is it traveling? Sun is stationary. It is the earth which is revolving around itself and revolving around the sun also. But seen from the earth on the eastern horizon, you will see at the northernmost point the sun starts its southern travel and reaches the southernmost southeastern corner in 6 months and returns back to the northeastern corner after another 6 months. So the rough dates, I could say, various concepts give various dates of these 2 time zones. According to one concept, from June 21st to December 20th is Dakshinayan and December 21st to June 20th is Uttarayan. Our elders have said what activities are most likely to be beneficial to us in both these time zones. Uttarayan is meant for mundane activities like Upanayanam, marriages, house construction, businesses or starting of the business and so on, while Dakshinayan is to be earmarked for non-mundane activities like Upasana, like worship of gods, all through the 6 months. If already initiated in some Upasana, intensification of Upasana is also supposed to be done in Dakshinayana. And in the Dakshinayana, the most important month seems to be Shravana, where we are in now. Shravana means on the full moon day, you can locate the moon in the Shravana star. Moon is a planet close to the earth, whereas the Shravana star is far away. Locating the moon in the Shravana star, what does it mean? It only means when we see from the earth, it looks as though the moon is in the Shravana star on full moon day. Then that month is called Shravana. Likewise, if the moon is located on Purnima day in the Kritika constellation, that month is known as Kartika, and so on. Shravana month is the most auspicious of all the months in Dakshinayana, and almost every alternate day is recommended for one worship or another. For example, all Mondays are earmarked for the worship of Shiva. Shravanyam Somavasare, they say. Tuesdays, worship of Gauri is recommended. On Fridays, Mahalakshmi is to be worshipped. And you have Janmashtami, that is the Krishna Jayanti, coming on the 8th day after the full moon, and that's most auspicious day for all of us. Throughout the month, the worship of Subramanya is recommended. This month is very auspiciously used by people in the south for going around the temples of Subramanya and worship him wherever he is installed. So, I thought I could talk about Subramanya and his tattva today. To know his real status in the creation, we should briefly enumerate or understand the order in the creation. The procedure followed. The creation starts after the earlier creation is involved. How many earlier creations had taken place, nobody knows. From the earlier creation, all the jivas whose evolution did not get completed by then are available before Sadashiva for them to be given an opportunity in the next creation for evolving themselves. So, out of his anugraha, Sadashiva takes a sankalpa that he would restart the creation once again. The moment he takes his sankalpa, from out of him, Paramashiva comes. He should do the execution of creation. The execution of creation requires the nature, the elements of nature, the mind, the body for the jivas to use them to evolve themselves. So, from out of him Parashakti comes, that is his nature. We call it as Prakriti or Parashakti. Both together start the creation. Paramashiva is known as the second Brahma, while Sadashiva is known as the first Brahma. From out of them, Vishnu comes out as the third Brahma. Brahma emanates from Vishnu as the fourth Brahma, who gives the opportunities for the jivas to be born and then pursue their travel to evolve themselves. Then at certain chosen points in time, the entire creation is involved or absorbed, and that is done by Rudra, who is known as fifth Brahma. All these five Brahmas are known as Karya Brahmas because they have been assigned certain specific duties. The Srishti should have gone on well with all of the five of them. But the intelligence of Sadashiva could grasp there are going to be certain occasions where all the five would be ineffective to tackle a situation. Very peculiar circumstances could take place. So, from out of him, another Karya Brahma came down, and he is known as Subramanya. He is the Paramashiva and Parashakti, Sampurna Purusha and Sampurna Prakriti, yet to think of starting the creation. He is one stage ahead of creation. Also, when the creation is going to be involved, Parashakti merges into the Paramashiva, and at that stage they are supposed to again merge into Sadashiva. That stage is Subramanya. So he is at the beginning of the creation, capable of doing the creation. He is at the end of the creation, having capability to absorb the creation and involve the creation also. He is a Layakaraka and the Srishtikarta, both capabilities he has. So his use was not required for a very long time. And because he is there right from the beginning of the creation, he is known as a Veda Purusha, and all Veda Purushas have their own mantras, like Ganapati, like Shiva, like Vishnu, like Brahma, and so on. And the mantra for Subramanya is Subramanyom, 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 Subramanyom 3 times. The later avatars, they don't have Veda mantras because they are not there from the beginning of the creation. So it is only to show that Subramanya Tattva was there right from the beginning of the creation. After a certain time, maybe in the beginning of this Manvantara, there is a need for Subramanya to act. An asura known as Taraka did tapas and got the Atmalinga of Paramashiva. What is meant by Atmalinga? All his capabilities. Each divine force has 2 aspects in it. One aspect is towards the creation, their capabilities, their functions and so on. Another aspect is their own meditation towards their origin, which is Sadashiva. That is full of jnana and ananda, whereas the one towards the creation is full of Shakti and capabilities. This Rakshasa demanded only that aspect of Paramashiva which is oriented towards the creation. He did not ask the other aspect. If he had asked for the other aspect, he would have become a jnani. He would have become a yogi. He did not become. He became an asura and created all sorts of trouble to all devas, and he created trouble for everyone in the creation. So that was a saving factor there. And he had to be eradicated. How can he be eradicated? Nobody in the creation can kill him or involve him or absorb him. Even Paramashiva cannot do it alone. Parashakti also cannot do it alone. He can be absorbed under 2 conditions. Either the entire creation should get involved, then he also goes into the creation. Or a force which is there at the beginning of the creation can absorb him. So Subramanya, who is there just ahead of creation, 1 step ahead of creation, had that capability of absorbing him, and so he was used to absorb Tarakasura. This is so far as the containment of Asura is concerned. But later, what was the work for Subramanya? He was made the commander-in-chief of the divine forces to take care of the Asuras. But because of his capability to involve the creation, he is a kind of a boon for all sadhaks also. What is it that we want? We want our laya into its source. We want complete absorption into Sadashiva. That absorption Subramanya can give us, and even for an ordinary devotee. So that is the speciality of the Subramanya Tattva. A simple comparison between the Upasana of other deities and Subramanya may be relevant at this occasion. For example, if you do Upasana of either Shiva or Vishnu, it happens this way. Each Jiva has 2 principles, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha Tattva is Sadashiva Tattva and Prakriti is this Parashakti. Each one has it, even Devatas. So in the Upasana of Vishnu or Shiva, what happens is the Purusha Tattva becomes more and more prominent, and the Prakriti goes on getting diminished in its size, and when the Prakriti is totally vanishing, only Purusha remains. He gets into the loka of that deity, he gets that form, he goes near the deity, Salokyam, Sarupyam, and then Sayujyam, that means merger into the deity takes place. That is true for either the Upasana of Vishnu or for Shiva. In the Shakti Upasana, what happens is, his Prakriti becomes stronger and stronger, his Purusha Tattva becomes weaker and weaker, his Prakriti merges into Parashakti. When Parashakti merges into Paramashiva, he also merges into Paramashiva, so he is redeemed that way. This is how it happens. In the case of Upasana of Subramanya, it is totally different. So what Subramanya does is, he gives his status to the devotee. His devotee also gets his Purusha and Prakriti raised to the level of Subramanya. And his Prakriti merges into his Purusha, and the Ananda that Subramanya enjoys, the status that Subramanya enjoys, is also given to the devotee. With the result, he is redeemed, not only getting redeemed, but he gets redeemed while in body. Whereas other upasanas give the result after the body is left. Subramanya Upasana makes him a Jivan Mukta. While he is in his body, he undergoes the jnana, he gets the Ananda of Subramanya. So he is known as a Jivan Mukta. This is very special. At this stage, I should talk about what is known as Sthana Balam and Kala Balam. There is some strength in the time. All times are not auspicious. They are auspicious for a particular job to be done. All places are not equally powerful. For example, if you go to Kashi and die there, people say you get redemption. That is the strength of that place. That is Sthana Balam. Any other place, if you die, the same thing cannot be said to be so. Arunachala has a Sthana Balam because Arunachala is Subramanya himself. It is where this Prakriti has totally merged into Paramapurusha. Sampurna Prakriti is together with the Sampurna Purusha, and that is the state of Subramanya there. The Prakriti there is only a devotee demonstrating how to worship that particular deity. So, that is where Ramana Maharishi went there for his tapas and got the grace of Subramanya and became Subramanya himself. It is very interesting to note that Subramanya himself came as a human being as Venkatraman. He was born somewhere near Madurai. That boy of 14 years came to Arunachalam. He did tapas for 40 days and became Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi within 40 days by the grace of that Lord Subramanya, who is there present as Arunachala mountain. So he demonstrated it that it is possible for you also to do the tapas for 40 days in the manner that he recommended and reach the same state that he reached, that is the Subramanya Tattva together. So he is worshipped all over the south with great fervor, and in the north I don't know why he is not that popular, because unless there is someone to tell and explain his greatness, it is not possible for the people to take it up. That great job was done by Sai Agastya. He came all from the north, crossed the mountain and came into the south and spread the devotion of Shiva and Subramanya all over the south. And that is the reason why you find lot of devotion for Subramanya in the south. And I think this is good enough for today.